Your support helps us bring you programs you love. Go to wyomingpbs.org, click on Support, and become a sustaining member or an annual member. It's easy and secure. Thank you.
Some Americans think Islam is a violent and foreign belief system from far away. Meet our peaceful Muslim neighbors here in Wyoming, next on Wyoming Chronicle. Welcome to Wyoming Chronicle, where every week you'll find a mix of issues, personalities, and colorful stories from around the state. On this program, we're going to interview Dr. Mohammed Waheed and shine what I hope is an illuminating light on a subject that evokes pain and fear for many Americans, the religion of Islam. But before we get to that interview, we have a new feature in Wyoming Chronicle. We open the show with a short report set and shot here in Wyoming. This one even features a movie star, Kevin Bacon. But it's really about Chance Phelps, a lively young man from Du Bois, Wyoming, who served his country and died in Iraq. It's about his family's effort, and Kevin Bacon's, to remember him by helping other vets.
So what's your destination, Sergeant?
I'm headed to Rochester. It's about 90 miles from here. My family is meeting us there.
Are you related to the deceased son?
Yes, sir. He's my brother.
Present. Hooks!
Movies depict people being killed all the time, so often that while watching, you may not feel anything. But the movie, Taking Chance, was all about what is felt when someone dies in war. Because Chance Phelps was a real person.
He was a great guy. High energy, athlete. Yeah, he didn't spend a lot of time in front of the TV, and he did all the normal things that kids do, but he just wasn't a couch potato. Chance was out on patrol with 2nd Platoon, and they were ambushed on Good Friday, April 9th, 2004. Chance laid down suppression fire until they got everybody out of harm's way, and then they commenced to taking out the people that were ambushing him, and Chance died.
Escorting the body of a fallen soldier to his family is a tough job, and it fell to Lieutenant Michael Strobel. Strobel wrote about the experience of taking Chance's body back to Du Bois, and that true story got Hollywood's attention, and Kevin Bacon's.
My brother and I play down in the D.C. area usually once a year. There's a club we play down there, and usually we do a visit either at Walter Reed or Bethesda Naval Hospital. And so I had just read the script and just come from one of those, kind of visits, and just met Mike at the same time, and all this kind of, it was like this perfect storm of stuff was happening. I was like, all right, yeah, I gotta do this one.
And Chance's mother wanted to act too, in a different way.
My daughter and I went for a walk and thought maybe we could make a difference in some of these vets' lives that are coming back home. We actually have a ranch 16 miles west of Du Bois, belongs to Bud Betts, and it's the Absaroka Ranch. He has graciously given us 2 weeks every summer to get as many people there as we can. It's all paid for by him and our foundation. They come here and stay for a week, and everything's taken care of. They're fishing, hiking, horseback riding, everything that they want to do, and then some.
People talk about what a force of life Chance was. When it came to promoting the foundation with a concert, so was his mother. They needed a headliner.
Kevin knew about our foundation, and I asked him, would you be willing to come to Du Bois and do a benefit concert? And he says, yeah, I could probably do that. Well, I kept bugging him. I kept bugging this guy.
Chance's mom, Gretchen, is a strong-willed person, and she was very clear that she wanted the band. But she wanted it to be a show, a celebration. So she wanted to do something special here in Du Bois.
Ironically, Kevin Bacon had never been to Du Bois. The movie was shot in Canada, but he flew into Wyoming from a movie set in London to perform with his band for Chance Phelps and his comrades.
Chance Phelps is among thousands of young Americans who have given their lives fighting in the Middle East. Since al-Qaeda's attacks on American soil in 2001, conflicts like the war in Iraq have often been depicted as a struggle between the Western world, a largely Christian civilization, and enemies who are largely Muslim. But al-Qaeda does not represent the entire Islamic world, or even a small part of it. Islam has for centuries enjoyed a peaceful coexistence with other religions. 1,000 years ago, Muslims, Christians, and Jews lived tolerantly together in the vibrant world of Andalusia, Spain. Nevertheless, Islam was invoked in attacks on Americans, and there are news reports daily that feed the fear of the Muslim world. There's an anger at the idea of an Islamic community center going up in the vicinity where the World Trade Center was attacked. So we have asked Dr. Mohammed Waheed, an American citizen, Wyoming resident, and a Muslim, to talk to us about his religion. So Mohammed, you're a citizen of the United States, you're a resident of Wyoming, and you're a Sunni Muslim. Two of those things I think you have in common with most of our viewers. One, your religion, no. Tell me how you would describe yourself.
Well, actually, even in the third one, there are more common things than people realize. Being a Muslim means as a person of monotheistic faith, where we share this belief, same beliefs as Jews and Christians, who we call as people of the book, because they have heavenly books as well, whereas Muslims have Quran, we have Torah and Bible for Jews and Christians. So there are a lot more common things than people realize between Muslims and people of other monotheistic faiths.
And I think we'll talk more about that and about some of the details of Islam. Let's talk first about your background and what brought you here to the United States and Wyoming.
I was born in India, grew up in India, and then migrated to the United States in 1972. I became a naturalized citizen in 1975. We were living, my wife and I, and our two kids who were born in Providence, were living on the East Coast for a while, and then we moved to Wyoming in 1981. I've been looking for some opportunities either in Alaska or Wyoming, and when the job opened up here, it was a perfect place to be.
I've got to say, somebody coming from India who says, I'm going to look at Alaska and Wyoming as the place to go, that's a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, when after having two kids and driving around on the East Coast, and at that time, there were lots of other problems there, so I wanted some safe place and good clean place for the kids to grow. And we chose Riverton here, and it has been 29 years and counting, and this is home for us. We love the place, we love the community, we love the people, and we love the outdoors, so this is a natural fit for us.
And you've gotten a fairly extensive education, I guess here in the United States primarily. I should be calling you Dr. Waheed and not just Mohammed.
Well, that's Mohammed is fine.
Yeah.
Well, I have a bachelor's in biology and chemistry, and a master's in chemistry, and I did my doctorate in education. I've done some other lab work in chemistry on the side. But right now, I work here in Wyoming.
Well, one of the reasons we're talking is there is a great deal of interest in Islam and the Muslim life, and a lot of that stems from the tragic events of 9/11/2001, when the airliners crashed into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, and a radical group, Al-Qaeda, appears to have been behind those attacks, and ever since then, of course, Americans have been on edge. Now, we're talking at a time of the year very close to that date, the anniversary of that date, and so, as always, when that comes around, there's a kind of heightened awareness and sensitivity about it. I might ask you, when it happened, 9/11, where were you and what was your reaction?
Well, actually, I was listening to CNN just before coming to work. It was 7:30 or so in the morning. I always had the news on. And I saw this, and it was more surreal. I didn't know what was going on. And when that happened, on the way to work, I heard that the first tower had collapsed. And a little later, heard about the second one. And it was still we were not sure what was going on and who was behind it and what had happened. And when the details emerged, it was a horrific accident. It was a horrific action, not an accident, intentional action to hurt our country, hurt our folks. And of course, we are all angered. It was horrified. The people who were killed in that action, they were innocent people. They are our brothers and sisters, and they are fellow citizens. So Muslims, like any other American, were horrified with this incident. We are all hoping and praying that we are not linked to this one by any means. There are a number of Muslims also killed in this one. And the initial reaction was, let us work as if we can handle this one, because we don't want to succumb to the terrorist act, because that'll be a victory for them. So let's try to have life normal as possible, not be affected to that extent that everything comes to a standstill. And that was our initial reaction. And when the details emerged and the gravity of the situation came up, we found out how ghastly this deed was.
And I think there were a lot of Americans who, up till that moment, knew almost nothing really about that part of the world, about Afghanistan and the high country in Pakistan and some of the areas where some of this attitude emerged that led to the attack. I think there's still a lot that Americans don't know. Whether it's even fair to link Islam to Al-Qaeda and the attack on the World Trade Center is an open question, I think. But one of the things I think we can do is talk a little bit about Islam and maybe give a little more understanding of the religion itself and some of the tenets that underlie it. So let's talk about that, what it is to be a Muslim.
First of all, Islam is a universal religion. There are more than 1.3 billion. The recent estimates are close to 1.5 billion Muslims all over the world. So almost 1/5 of the world's population is Muslim. One misunderstanding our friends have here is they associate Muslims with Arabs and Arabs with Muslims. Majority of Muslims are not Arabs. As a matter of fact, 80% of Muslims are non-Arabs. Only 20% will be Arabs. There are millions and millions of people in Asia, in Africa, in Europe, and in Americas who are of Muslim faith. So it is a global phenomenon. It's a global religion. Islam is not a new message, as many people think that it is something alien, something new. The message of Islam is the same message which was brought forth by other monotheistic faiths and prophets of other religions. Noah and Abraham and Moses and Jesus, they brought in the same message to worship one God, to believe in one supreme being, to love that supreme being dearly and nearly with all the strength. And that is what Muslims believe in.
And there are Christian beliefs such as the Ten Commandments that in fact apply within Islam as well.
Exactly. There are a lot more similarities between Judeo-Christian faiths and Islam than people realize. And we call ourselves, I mentioned earlier, we call our Muslims call Jews and Christians as people of the book, and we respect the heavenly books revealed.
And I don't know how much history we have to give in terms of Muhammad and when Muhammad's time, which of course was after the time of Christ, but do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Prophet Muhammad was born in the year 570, and when he was at the age of 40, he was chosen as the prophet. Keep in mind that other prophets, Moses and Noah and Abraham, others, they were all human beings, and so was Prophet Muhammad was human being. And Angel Gabriel came to him and revealed the heavenly text, and that is how he was selected as a prophet. And his command was to go and preach people. The context again is, at that time in Arabia, people were idol worshippers. There was a lot of ignorance, and there was female infanticide. It was a shame for people to have a female child born in the family. And in that severe, harsh situation, Prophet Muhammad arose, and he brought back and taught the morals and values which are very common with Judeo-Christian. If someone studies the religious faith, Islam, they'll find that there are so many similarities between what a person is familiar with from studying Judaism and Christianity. And we feel that the author of all three religions is the same. The source, the fountainhead of all three religions is the same. And the same message has been sent from time to time to different nations, different places, via different prophets. Many a times those messages were lost because there was no proper way of preserving these messages, and there was a reason or purpose for the message to be brought back and renewed, and that's why Islam came in the same tradition as Judaism and Christianity came.
Now, there are a lot of people, of course, know only the harshest elements of the Quran. I probably don't say that very well, but I'll try.
Quran is right.
And Sharia law. There are also aspects of the religion and the practices that maybe people could learn a little bit more about, but we'll get to some of the things that frighten people. Let's talk first about just some of the practices. Do you pray 5 times a day? Are you a practitioner of Islam now?
Yes. Muslims are required to, first of all, have faith. The first pillar of Islam is to have faith in one God, and to believe in the heart and declare. So one cannot be forced to just say that I believe in one God without accepting in the heart. So one has to accept as well as profess, declare. The second is to pray 5 times a day. During different times of the day, we pray, and each prayer takes about 5 minutes or so. The third one is poor due, which we call as zakat. If you have excess wealth over which a year has passed, so this is above and beyond all of your needs and any other expenses that you have. If you have money sitting aside, the dictate is to share 2.5% of that, give it to poor people, because you need to share your wealth with poor people. There's a third. Then we have fasting in the month of Ramadan. Ramadan is the 9th month of a lunar calendar, and we fast from dawn to dusk. And we just finished the month of Ramadan recently. And by the way, we just celebrated the Eid, which is the end of the Ramadan festival last week, and we are sharing Rosh Hashanah time, which is the blessed days of repentance for Judaism. And the same concept lies in the last 10 days of Ramadan and the Rosh Hashanah also.
I was going to ask you about that. Of course, we're speaking, as you say, just at the end of Ramadan. Years ago, I was in the Philippines while that holiday, and holiday is the wrong word, that period was being celebrated, and it was noisy, and there were some guns being fired, and there was lots of really celebrating in the streets. I believe that was at the beginning, and then, or maybe it was at the end.
Yeah.
But it was quite the celebration, and of course, as an outsider, I hardly knew what was going on. It's a very important event, though.
Yeah, as we discussed earlier, it is a global religion, and it is practiced in different parts of the world, and people celebrate in different with different flares and cultures.
Let's talk about some of what I think some would view as the darker side of Islam, and some of the more traditional laws that are accepted in parts of the world. Things that can happen to someone who commits adultery or to a thief. There's stoning. We see that especially at a time like now when things are a little bit intense and people are thinking a lot about it. How consistent is that, or how inconsistent is that?
I won't call that darker side of Islam, because we just don't say that there's darker side of Islam. How, as it is practiced, Muslims, sure. First of all, the Sharia laws are the same as they are in Judeo-Christian faith. If you read Bible and Torah, you'll see that the same injunctions are there, same limits are there, same punishments are prescribed for the different crimes to be committed. The punishments are basically there to scare people away from doing bad things, to keep them away from committing those crimes in the beginning, saying that, if you do this thing, this will happen, so you stay away from that one. So the whole training and culture is that don't go close to committing these sins or these crimes, because this is what will happen in this world. We don't know what will happen in the hereafter. So these are the things which promotes human welfare and promotes civil society and keeps people away from committing crimes. As far as those crimes, the punishments which are instituted, stoning or cutting off hand, there are a lot more details to that one. There's a due process, and I'm sure a lot more crimes are committed than the ones who go to that stage. When they cut somebody's hand, you hear once in a while, if somebody commits a crime of theft, it is not for self-preservation, for family use, or for survival type of thing. It has to be above and beyond. If I go and steal something, then I'll be held accountable, and then there's a lot of the due process which goes on there before anything. And then when they say hand, usually they just chop off a thumb. And again, if you hear one every 10 years, you know that at the normal practice of everyday average person may be committing the crimes a lot more than that.
And it's worth noting too that around the world, and Islam, as you say, is an international religion, there are countries that are ruled very strictly under Islamic law, and then there are countries with secular governments that are Islamic countries. So there's really quite a variety, just as there is in the Western world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I was thinking of Turkey, which is a secular government in an Islamic country. Then you have Saudi Arabia, which is an Islamic-ruled government where the law is enforced and religious leaders are involved.
Yeah. Indonesia and as you mentioned, Philippines earlier. So Islam is practiced in, there are 58 countries where there's majority Muslims in the country.
Talk about Muslims in this country, in the United States, and even in Wyoming, if you'd like, and how do you integrate your life, and how do Muslims integrate their life in this sort of various society that we've got?
There are estimates of almost 7 million Muslims in North America, US and Canada, and Mexico. In Wyoming, we have maybe about 100 families. There are 2 mosques in Wyoming. One is in Laramie and one is in Cheyenne. And we try to go there as often as we can, especially for the main festivals that Muslims celebrate. The first one is the end of Ramadan, which I just mentioned. The second one is the Feast of Sacrifice, which is in Abrahamic tradition, when God commanded Abraham to go and sacrifice his son, and he followed that command, and his son was saved, and you know the biblical history there. In the same tradition, Muslims also celebrate that day. It's called Feast of Sacrifice, and that will be coming in about 3 months' time. So those are 2 main festivals that we have. So we try to all get together in Laramie or Cheyenne to the mosque, 2 mosques that we have there for kinship and fellowship and celebration.
And how do you feel in terms of the rest of society's interest in and attention to Muslim life in their midst?
It is unfortunate that something as tragic as 9/11 had to occur before there was interest in Islam. Islam is a peaceful religion. The word Islam itself means peace. It means submission to the will of God. And when you submit yourself to the will of God, you attain internal peace. So that is what the religion is called Islam. The one who follows that is called a Muslim. A Muslim means one who has submitted to the will of God. And when the other confusion is people think Allah is some alien deity or something. Allah is the supreme being, supreme God. It is derived from Ilah, which is a Judaic word, again Hebrew word, which is also refers to the supreme deity. It is, if you pick up any Bible in Arabic, you'll see the word Allah there referring to God. So God is Allah, Allah is God. We prefer the term Allah because it's a unique word. It is very rich in the sense that just like you have plural and female and male and all that, God is unique, one in all of its connotations. There's no plural or singular. There's no male or female. So it just transcends gender attribution as well as singular or plural. So it is just one and unique.
Well, Mohammed, we have, I think, many more things to talk about. But we're going to come to a conclusion right now, but we will talk again and more on this subject. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
We don't expect, and Dr. Waheed would not expect, to erase the fear and misunderstanding simply by talking about his beliefs. But Islam is a religion with many, billions really, of peaceful followers around the world. In our diverse society, predicated on tolerance and freedom of religion, we need to know these neighbors. My thanks to our guest for speaking at a time when many would choose not to. We have more to talk about, and we'll have Dr. Waheed back. Every week on Wyoming Chronicle, we'll meet interesting guests, tackle difficult subjects, and now and then bring you a celebrity like Kevin Bacon. Come back next week and every week, and when you think of something or someone we ought to feature, let us know. You can reach us through our website at wyomingpbs.org, where you'll also find an archive of past Chronicle shows. Make us a habit.